I've been asked a number of times who is better, the Tier 2 version of Aragorn or the Tier 3 Aragorn King of Men. The goal of this video is to provide a little bit of context on why I think King of Men is somewhat of an underrated commander. However, before we get to that, I want to point out that I'm doing another giveaway of 4 season passes, courtesy of Codashop. Check out the description of this video if you want to know more about how to win those season passes. And thank you to Codashop for sponsoring this video. Allow me to introduce you to Codashop, a platform that will allow you to top up your accounts in most or all of your favorite games. Codashop partners directly with some of the largest publishers in the business to allow for a quick, safe, and seamless purchase experience when buying in-game items or currencies. Codashop's partnerships allow them to immediately send your purchases to your account, just like if you're using the Google or Apple stores. They even support sending gifts directly to your friends. Using Codashop is quick and easy. First, go to Codashop.com or use my affiliate link in the description of this video. Next, select the game that you wish to make a purchase for. Fill out the required account information, select your top-up, choose your payment method, and enter an email address where you'd like to receive a receipt. And you're done. Topping up your accounts has never been easier, and thank you to Codashop for sponsoring this video. Welcome back, everyone. Aragorn, King of Men, and Tier 2 Aragorn are actually quite similar commanders. 2 of their 4 skill trees, in fact, are exactly the same, those being the Anduril skill tree and the sub-skills attached to that, as well as the Strider skill tree and the skills attached to it. So how do you decide on which one of these commanders you should use? I want to go ahead and start things off and preface this all by saying, if you are a free-to-play player or low spender, 99.9% of the time, I would choose the Tier 2 version of Aragorn simply because you will be able to get him to a higher level of respect than you would the T3 Aragorn. And since, in my opinion, they fill similar roles, since their skill trees are so similar, I think you'll get more value out of the Tier 2 Aragorn than the Tier 3 Aragorn, simply by nature of being able to have higher respect and have extra points invested in things like Hidden Air, or depending on who you're fighting, Sun and Moon Splendor. Well, let's talk about why you should use the Tier 3 version of Aragorn instead. First of all, I think that T3 Aragorn, I'm just going to call him King of Men from now on. King of Men, in my opinion, is significantly better in the early game when it comes to taking tiles, and this is thanks to the LOTR tree. This tree provides King of Men's army with a pretty respectable amount of healing. It's not anything like Arwen or Galadriel, but he can pump out 50 to 60k heals against big tiles. He also has Exorbitance, which is an okay damage buff, and generally speaking, in my experience, unless you're like a super high DPS commander like Legolas or Lurtz, for most commanders in the early game, a significant chunk of your damage is going to be coming from your army, so buffing up your army isn't necessarily a bad thing. And that's just because a lot of these damage commanders, they need those levels in order to get many points into their damage dealing skills. Legolas is a bit different since he does so many extra normal attacks if you have a really good weapon on him, and once you get the points in his follow-up, he can start doing quite a lot of damage on his own. But that being said, I think King of Men is quite a lot stronger in the early game, and he has better base stats than T2 Aragorn. So if we look at the stats here, we get 2.17, 1.66, and 2.0. Compare that to 2.1, 1.01, and 1.62. So you can see that King of Men has a better stat growth per level than Tier 2 Aragorn does. Additionally, in my opinion, King of Men has a much better trait, that being Leader, which increases his command by +5 compared to Balanced for Aragorn 2. The reason I think that leader is better is because the amount of damage that your commander does when they use one of their abilities or attack is based at least in part on how much of their army is left alive. If you are a leader commander, you have a higher command cap, so unless you're just getting completely slaughtered, a higher percentage of your troops are going to be alive. For example, let's just say you have 75 command points on T2 Aragorn. That would be 80 on King of Men. Let's say you lose half that. We're just going to make some easy math. You lose 35 command points worth of troops. Tier 2 Aragorn is going to have 40 command left, while King of Men is actually going to have 45 command worth of troops left. So I think the leader trait is a bit better. This is also very applicable in the super early game when you're just starting to take 130s and 150 tiles. Those 5 extra command points seriously help out once you hit level 20. So those are the reasons why I think you should use King of Men. Like I said at the very beginning of this explanation, if you aren't a high spender, just stick with the T2 version. If you can invest and take King of Men to R5 or R10, in my opinion, you're going to get more mileage out of him. So let's wrap things up by talking about the skill build that I think you should take. In the early game, this is what I would use. Basically, you want to fill out the LOTR tree. The points in Exorbitance are actually somewhat optional. I like them because I like having my army do a lot of damage in the early game. You can definitely spend these 7 points in his damage skills instead. But for PvP, particularly late game PvP, I would run as few points in this tree as possible. You're going to want to build this guy very similar to Tier 2 Aragorn, and that's the full Anduril tree. So that's 15 here, 7, 7. You're going to put 14 or 15 into Strider. Probably you're never going to put the 15th point in. There might be some weird edge case where you'd want a very specific item on King of Men, but generally speaking, any of the items that you're going to want to use on him, he's going to be able to use regardless of this max level effect. So just keep this at 14, go 7, 7, and then at this point, it's my belief that you should start leveling up King of Men if you have the extra skill points. Put 1 point into Dunedain Bloodline. Please note, the attack value on this does not scale. So anything past the first point isn't really that exciting. And after that, you're going to want Return of the King. This ends up, if you have enough points left over, this actually ends up outscaling Tier 2 Aragorn's Hidden Heir, believe it or not. I'll let you guys do the math on that one. But it does outscale it if you have super high respect. As far as itemization, we'll go ahead and touch on that. Ignore my items on this guy right now. He's not one of my primary commanders this season. I've just been using him to basically flip tiles, so I wanted to give him a little something. What you'll want, in my opinion, as far as purple gear goes, is a battle axe with flay for your weapon. Ignoring armor in those early rounds can help you snowball an early advantage into a battle win. It's pretty much the best DPS commander item, I think, as far as the weapon slot goes. For the chest slot, I think there are a couple of good options. You can take a Fire Protection Superior Halberd. This is particularly applicable if you are fighting a lot of Witch Kings or anybody else that's bringing burn damage to fights. I guess Kumul could still do that. Gothmog can bring Alchemists as well. Otherwise, I think you're going to want a Scale Mail with Gallant. Another acceptable option would be a Scout's Mail with Shroud. If you take the Scale Mail with Gallant, this is kind of like the pure damage build. You're going to want to scale your might as much as possible. If you take Shroud, you're losing some focus, you're gaining speed, which can be important in certain matchups, but you're also gaining a little bit of survivability in those early rounds. The Helm slot, I think there are 2 options here. Actually, there's quite a few good options, so just pick whichever one you think works best for you. A quick side note is a full helm with Blinding Barrier, plus Full Knights is good for sniping Witch Kings. I would use this in combination with the Burn Protection Halberd if you're going to need to kill Witch Kings. I think a Brutal Helmet with Melee Vigor is very good. This gives you Might, Speed, Army, HP. This is a bit hard to refine as a good faction, though. So you might just want to stick with something like a bone mask if you want to pump up your army's HP. Hysteria is a fine trade on that. Otherwise, you're just going to want to look for a full helm with melee vigor. The full helm is going to give you the most might of those options. However, you're going to be trading some army HP for some damage reduction. So make that choice as you will. And then for the accessory slot, I think you could take something with Hunter's Mark. If you have, for example, a Harp of Lorien with Hunter's Mark, if you want to be sniping Gandalfs and Gilgalads. However, in general, I would probably just run a Hithlane with Mend. You can combine the Hithlane, you'll get plus 3 army HP from that. You can also run the Bone Mask, get 3 more army HP from that. That's plus 6 army HP just from purple items. If you start upgrading into gold items, then you can get, what is it called? The Explorer's Outfit, I believe is the name. Let me just double check that real quick before we move on to talk about our troops. It's all the way at the bottom here because it's a new item. Yeah, Explorer's Outfit. Since you're primarily going to be using men on this guy anyway, this can be an additional source of HP. So now we're talking about up to plus 9 HP. That can seriously make your army more tanky, more durable. And to wrap things up, I'll give a very simple army composition on this guy. As with most damage commanders, cataphracts, if you can afford them, are going to be your best option. Just run pure cataphracts. They are ridiculously durable, especially for a tier 3 unit. If you are fighting Witch Kings, other sources of burn damage, you're going to want to run guardians. You can stack up a really high amount of anti-burn damage between the guardian trait plus the superior halberd with the fire resistance. And then the other option, rather than running Guardians against Witch Kings, would be Knights. I don't even want to scroll through here. Oh, there we go. We found the Knights. Obviously, I don't have any trained because I'm not using T2 units anymore in this season. But you can combine the full helm with Blinding Barrier, plus the superior halberd with the burn protection to give your knights a lot of fire resistance. And these are very, very cost-effective units. They're only T2s, which means they're cheaper than most T3 units, and they are conscripted quite rapidly with fully upgraded ring skills, quarters, etc., etc. 7 minutes per command point, so you can run solo knights in that particular niche case. In general, I would suggest sticking with cataphracts or guardians. Guardians being the more cost-efficient option if resources and time are not on your side. Alright guys, that's it for this video. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. See you in the next one. Phoenix, over and out.